I once had 2 job interviews in North Carolina. I lived in New York at the time. I was taking the drive down there instead of flying to save money. My at the time job sucked. And the 2 jobs I was interviewing for could finally be a new start for me. They were corporate office jobs with a lot of benefits. And good salaries, plus the weather would be much better than New York. I was driving down there on a Thursday night. I took off from work Friday, because that's when the 2 interviews were. Since I had to work Thursday, I had to hit the road as soon as I was off work. I stopped home first to grab my suitcase and other stuff I was bringing, then I said goodbye to my family. And set off. It was a long 8+ hour drive ahead of me. My ETA was into the early hours of the morning, like 2 a.m. I was heading to a Comfort and I drank like 3 cups of coffee my first few hours driving, and for a while I was good, but if you're already running on fumes, no amount of coffee is going to keep you going. I already didn't get much sleep the night before because I was stressing over these interviews, and after a long busy day at work, the last thing I wanted to be doing was driving close to 9 hours. It was late at night now. I had about 2 hours left in the drive. There were very few other cars on the road this late at night on a weeknight. I was starting to feel really sleepy now, but I knew most of the drive was behind me. Suddenly, on the side of the highway, I saw a man in a suit standing there, not walking, not moving. He was facing my car, and as I looked at him as I passed, I saw his face turning to follow my car. I said out loud, it was truly bizarre. I almost contemplated turning around and asking if he needed a ride. He was just in the middle of the highway in a suit at like 12:30 at night. I came up with stories in my head about what may have happened, like maybe his girlfriend kicked him out of the car. I did this to keep my mind away, because I felt like I was drifting away. Then something beyond frightening happened. It was only maybe 10 minutes after I had seen that man that I saw another man on the side of the road coming up, also in a suit, also just standing there. What the hell was going on? Slowed down to pull to the side of the road and possibly ask if everything was okay, and maybe offer a ride. I don't know what I was thinking, but either way, when I was on the shoulder almost to a stop, I looked in the rearview mirror and then turned around completely. And that man was gone, as if he just disappeared. I stepped on the gas and got back on the road. I was losing it. I needed to stop for another coffee. I had about an hour and a half to go at this point. I stopped at the first pit stop I could find and bought a medium coffee. I drank a few sips, but, as I was sitting in the rest area gas station parking lot, I spotted a man in a suit again standing under a light post. Same man this time. I got a clearer view of his face. He looked like a middle-aged, white man, short dark brown hair, clean shaven, and a neutral expression, but it was the way he was once again facing my car that freaks me the out. Turned the car on and got out of there without looking back. I wanted to complete this drive, but the coffee wasn't doing it. I felt like I was going to pass out behind the wheel. I wasn't gonna make it, so I pulled off the highway and parked in a random parking lot. I angled the seat all the way down, and I attempted to go to sleep. As tired as I was, I couldn't help but be scared in this empty parking lot, scared that if I opened my eyes I would see that man in the suit again. I was drifting into a sleep when something made me wake up again and open my eyes, probably my mind playing tricks on me again. I looked around the outside of my car, scared I was gonna see him. I looked out each window and then the front windshield, and it was clear. Then I looked in the rear view mirror, and I felt my soul leave my body for a second, because there I saw for a second a person in the back seat. Was the man in the suit again? But I didn't look long enough, because I opened the door, screamed, and fell backwards out of the car. As I crawled back, I kept screaming until I finally got up, looked inside the car, and saw nobody. The back seat was empty. As I came to my senses, I realized my mind had been playing tricks on me all night. There is no man in a suit. I'm just completely exhausted and need to sleep. I got back in my car, my heart racing honestly. Now, though I was too awake to go to sleep, I turned the car back on and finished my coffee, and banged out the rest of the drive. By the time I checked into the hotel and got to the room. I fell into the bed and passed out right away. The next day my first interview was at 11 a.m. so I didn't get much sleep. But I definitely felt somewhat recharged. However, the second my interviewer walked out to greet me, I froze up. My interviewer looked identical to the image of that man in the suit. I kept hallucinating the night before. No, the interviewer noticed me freeze up. I could see it in his face. I tried to recover from this, but it set the tone for the rest of the interview. And I was completely nervous and out of it. I felt like I weren't a dream. I left that interview with only an hour to get ready for my next one. My next interviewer was a woman. I did much better with this one because I actually got the job. I still work here and live in North Carolina now. My old therapist told me that she thinks the stress of mentally preparing for the interviews mixed with the lack of sleep caused me to hallucinate the main cause of my fear and stress. So I hallucinated a man in a suit because that's who I pictured would be interviewing me. I feel like it doesn't sound too far-fetched, but it doesn't change how downright horrific the whole ordeal was. I was driving in Clearfield County, Pennsylvania, one night to avoid traffic getting home. It was probably a little past midnight at this point, and the road was basically deserted just the way I like it. I was listening to my usual podcast on the radio, when a ding came from my car alerting me that I was low on fuel. I put a pit stop into my Maps app for the nearest gas station, which was a little ways up the secluded road. About 5 minutes later, I pulled into the gas station on the right, the only parking lot for miles, as this road was basically nothing but woods on each side. The gas station with some generic no-name gas station. I pulled next to the pump and noticed a man filling up the tank of his old beater pickup truck. He was looking at me as I walked past him and into the shop. Inside the shop, I bought a coffee and paid cash for my gas. When I came back outside, I noticed the man at the pump getting into his pickup truck, then driving away after a couple of minutes of filling up the tank. I got back in my car and continued my drive, but not even a minute after leaving the station, I noticed on the side of the road on the grass was that same pickup truck from the gas station. It was just sitting next to the woods, turned off. Interesting. I kept driving, looking in my rear view mirror to see if it would turn on. Nope. I turned my podcast back on and continued my drive. A few minutes passed though, and I heard another ding come from my car. My dashboard screen showed that one of my tires was very low. I slowed down and started hearing a wobbling sound. I opened a window and knew right away I had a flat tire. I pulled to the side of the road and went to investigate. It was my rear driver's side tire. It was flat. I didn't think I hit anything. I would have felt it. The thought came to my head, what if that guy at the gas station slashed it? I took out my phone and was looking up number for my roadside assistance company on Google. I heard the sound of a car or truck engine a little down the road behind me. But oddly, I didn't see any headlights. It was just pitch black down there. Then the sound of the engine suddenly stopped, and it was quiet again. I went to my trunk to grab the SOS flashlight out of my toolbox. My dad gave me 1 year as a Christmas present. I grabbed the long light rod, turned it on and aimed it down the road. I saw the reflection of a truck's headlights pulled on the side of the road about 200 feet away. Looked like that pickup truck again. I gasped and ran into the woods and ducked behind a big bush and tree. I took out my phone and called 911. I heard the sound of the truck down the road starting, and this time the headlights were on. I heard and saw through the bush the truck pull up next to my car, and then after a short moment of silence a man yelled out, "You need some help." I knew better than to answer. 911 picked up, and I whispered into the phone my location, and that someone slashed my tire, and that I think the person who did it was right here following me. The lady asked a bunch of standard questions, asking me to describe the man and his truck. I heard the truck door open and closed. I told the lady over the phone that the man got out of his truck. She told me to remain hidden in the woods. If I thought he was a threat, she asked if I could see if he was armed. And that's when the call disconnected. I had shitty cell reception here. I waited hoping she would call me back. I'm sure she was trying to, but it wouldn't go through. I heard the sound of another passing car in the road. It was slowing down, then I heard talking. It was the voice of another man. I crept closer to the edge of the woods to get a view of the road. I saw the man from the pickup truck standing next to this other stocked pickup truck in the middle of the road. He was talking to a person in the truck. I overheard the creepy man coming up with this fake explanation as to what was going on here at that moment. I rushed into the road yelling help. I don't know him. Both the man in the truck and the man who followed me looked over to me, said to the men in the truck that this man slapped my tire and followed me. Here the man in the truck's reaction was to look at the man with a disturbed look. The creepy man tonight having done anything to my tires, and claimed he's never seen me ever. At the same time he hurried away to his pickup truck and started backing up until he cleared both of our vehicles. Then drove off. The man in the other pickup truck got out and examined my flat, then offered me a ride into town. I told him I had police officers on the way, and sure enough, within a few minutes, a cop car with its lights on pulled up beside us. The man vouched for me when I told him about the other man. The police officer said he'd go down to the gas station and request to see the camera footage to see if it caught the pickup driver actually slashing my tire. The officer took my info and he waited with me. While I waited for the roadside assistance company, the tow truck driver gave me a ride to a shop where my dad picked me up. I never heard from that police officer, so I guess he didn't see anything in that video footage. It's scary how close I was to probably being abducted though.